Hi everyone. Back in May earlier this year, before we went live with Rapido, we held a focus group with a small number of Bond staff and students to gather some feedback on the interface changes to Primo and the wording of Rapido labels. So today my presentation will just focus on some of the methods and tools we use to gather the feedback and test the changes. When organising the focus group, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to combine it with some usability testing. So as I was unable to sit with each participant one-on-one to actually complete the usability test in the focus group session, I decided to create the test in Qualtrics. So we ran the focus group in a computer lab where each participant was able to complete the Qualtrics usability test at the beginning of the session, and then we all came together for the group discussion. So the usability test also served as a simple introduction to the proposed changes to the Primo interface. So when it came to the group discussion part, the changes were fresh in their mind, and I was really hoping that this would allow for some constructive feedback. So the first 3 bullet points on this slide were the key questions that were covered in both the usability test and in the focus group discussion. And the last bullet point about renaming the service was our last point of discussion in the focus group. So I pinpointed certain aspects of the requesting process in Primo that we needed feedback on. So the usability test focused on a scenario where the user was trying to find a specific book, and each part of the usability test looked at different aspects of the requesting process. So the rest of my presentation will focus on 2 different tests that I created in Qualtrics as part of the usability test. And if anyone is keen to do something similar with Qualtrics or another survey tool, hopefully you'll find it useful. One of the first parts of the usability test was a first click test. And what I did was provide a screenshot of Primo and ask them where they would first click to begin a task. So reviewing where the user makes their first click can help identify what they find confusing or where design could be improved. So here's a short screencast of the first click test in Qualtrics. So it starts with giving the user background information on what they're trying to do, such as looking for a specific book. And then when they click next, they're shown a screenshot of Primo and are asked where they would click to find the book. Once they choose the spot that they would click, they then proceed to the next part of the usability test. So here are our results. You can see the heat map image. Most of the clicks were on the expand your search link, but there were a couple up near the search bar and the advanced search option. So if the user correctly chose the expand your search link as their first click, they were then asked how easy it was for them to find this option. None of them said it was very easy. The responses were split between somewhat easy and somewhat difficult. So in a perfect world, we would be able to get rid of the expand or the need for them to click on the expand your search option. But we're not able to do that at this stage. So for now, we've just made some slight style changes that we felt better emphasised the expand your search link. And we've also updated the wording based on the feedback in the group discussion too. So I thought it'd be useful if you're interested in creating this type of test in Qualtrics. I've got a slide here of exactly how to do that, so feel free to refer back to this at a later date if you need. So one of the other interesting parts of the usability test that I'd like to share is the 5-second test. If you're unfamiliar with this type of test, what you do is show a screenshot or a wireframe of a web page to the participant and to the participant for 5 seconds. And after that, you ask them what they can remember about it. So did they remember the key services or options available to them, or were they distracted by some part of the web page design and weren't able to absorb the information? Or maybe the wording was confusing to them and they weren't really sure what to do. So the next slide, I'm going to show you my 5-second test, which I actually decided to extend to 20 seconds. So this was the first time I'd created a test like this, and I wasn't entirely confident that 5 seconds would be enough realistically for the average person to absorb much in that time, especially in the artificial setting of a focus group. But really, upon reflection, 20 seconds was probably too generous. So here's a screencast of the 5-second test, or my 20-second test. The participant was first presented with some text explaining what they would be shown on the next page and how long for, and really what options were available to them to obtain the book. So after clicking next, they were then presented with a screenshot of the full record for an item, and automatically after 20 seconds, the page moved on to the next page, which asked them questions about what they could recall. So the results of the 5-second test show that most participants were able to recall the Rapido tiles, and some could even recall the delivery times, and one could recall the loan lengths. Both in the 5-second test and the focus group discussions, we really had the most positive feedback about the Rapido tiles and the details of the expected delivery times and loan lengths information that was available there. Some of the constructive feedback from participants focused on the prioritisation given to different sections on the full record. So for example, participants were confused by the prominence given to the send to actions, and due to this prominence they were spending time looking at each of the icons to figure out if that's how they could obtain the book. We also had some feedback on the purchase request option and how it was appearing before the Rapido tiles. So they felt that the purchase request option was quite disjointed to the Rapido tiles and caused some confusion. So as a result of this feedback in the testing, we made 2 changes. So we pushed the send to options down below the Rapido tiles, and secondly, we modified an existing general electronic service that would hide the purchase request option on more resources where it wasn't applicable. Unfortunately, I couldn't really think of a way to change the purchase request option position without making negative impacts in other areas, or I couldn't think of a way to give it a more cohesive look and feel to the Rapido tiles. So if you're interested, I've got a slide here on how to actually create the 5-second test in Qualtrics. Basically, you add 2 types of questions into one block, and that does your 5-second test. Earlier in the year, ANZREG held a webinar where Alex Daly provided a great overview of user testing and user experience. So the ideas for trying out the first click test and the 5-second test came from this presentation. So I encourage you to check it out for more ideas and inspiration. So the results of the focus group and usability test really did validate some of the customization decisions we had already made, as well as giving us some further ideas for improvements. So feel free to get in touch if you want any further detail on how Qualtrics was used to create the usability test. And thank you.